When I bought Hellblade during the Steam summer sale of 2021, I never thought that I would recommend a game like Hellblade to people. Since that I've played and finished it, now I can happily say that I was wrong to doubt the game. And yeah, I mean it when I say I was wrong. I had a lot of doubts buying Hellblade. And yeah, at the end, I was happy that I bought Hellblade. My initial thoughts of Hellblade: in many ways, Hellblade does a lot of things well, starting from the graphics to the audio. And yeah, the audio is like freaking amazing. Like, I think this is how the game should be played, on high fidelity and with a good pair of headsets. Like, I mean it, dude. Like, you won't regret playing the game on a good pair of headsets and on high fidelity. So yeah, in other words, I'm really impressed on what the developers of Ninja Theory were able to achieve in Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. So let's talk about the story. The story of Hellblade follows our main character Senua, who is on a journey to Helheim to save the soul of her deceased loved one, also known as Dillion. I didn't know that at the beginning. Apparently it was mentioned so many times at the beginning, and I didn't know. Yeah, we were trying to save Dillion the whole time. Yeah, that's just my bad, but yeah, I had to Google it up, and yeah. And the slight twist to the story: our main character Senua suffers from a mental illness known as psychosis. Her illness plays a huge part of the storytelling. Because of her mental illness, it leads to her having multiple inner voices, and you as a player can hear the voices in many different ways, or many different angles, if I can say. Because one, you can hear the voices when you're trying to solve puzzles, and two, you can hear voices when you are in combat situations. And you can also hear Senua's inner thoughts at times, also conversing with the inner voices. A quick tip, and also a fact: in many ways, when you try to solve the puzzles, some of the voices like really mock you. And when you're in combat situations and you're about to die, the voices can help you out and give you a quick tip, tell you when to dodge, tell you when to move, tell you what to avoid and stuff. But yeah, like eventually, the voices are annoying. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they are annoying, and I've been duped maybe more than 3 times by the voices. And yeah, just make sure that you don't go crazy when you play this game if you hate backseat gamers. That's what the voices are mainly. They are backseat gamers. But yeah, the voices themselves play a slightly small part, or a small portion, when it comes to the good freaking audio. I'll explain that a little bit later on in the video. So let's talk about the world of Hellblade. Sadly though, there isn't much of exploration mechanics in the game. What you'll mostly do throughout the game is you're gonna travel from one area to the next, to the next, to the next, up until you get to the end game. That's how it is. But most of the time you will get to appreciate and look at the graphical fidelity of this game in many ways. Because yeah, it runs on the Unreal Engine 4, and man, like, I never knew that you can actually push the Unreal Engine 4 to this level of fidelity. And this is a previous gen game, and if I may say so myself, I honestly thought that this game was a current gen game, because if you had to look at the graphical fidelity, I think one would be easily fooled. But yeah, man, like, the world of Hellblade looks freaking amazing. I'm sad that I wasn't able to explore it like an open world game. There isn't much to the gameplay of Hellblade. There are a few things you can do in the world of Hellblade. 1, you can actually collect rune stones. 2, you do puzzle solving, of which that is actually part of the progression of the story. And 3, there is combat. So first of all, let's talk about the rune stones. So the rune stones are collectibles you can find in the game as you go along with the story. The twist into collecting the rune stones is that you get to listen to Druth's also known as one of the inner voices that Senua can hear. And what Druth does, he tells a story about Norse gods and fallen warriors. From my experience collecting the runestones throughout the game, as you collect the runestones, it makes the story even more meaningful, the one that Druth explains to you. It's more like a side story. Long story short, listening to Druth's story early on feels kind of meaningless. But I think as you go along and as you collect more of those runestones, the story that Druth tells you of the Norse gods, Norse mythology, or the fallen warriors, they have meaning to them in many ways. Because of the effort you put into collecting the stones, it actually makes collecting runestones worthwhile. But to be honest, if you miss like a couple of stones early on, it would make the story slightly meaningless, if I may say. And my tip for you is that just collect the runestones, or just look for them early on, just so that you don't miss out on the good story somewhere around mid-game. So number 2 is we're gonna talk about the combat. The combat is very simple. I am not gonna lie, it's very simple. It is so simple that you actually don't need a tutorial for the combat. The only thing you have to do is just go to your settings and look at the control buttons. So the combat alone is composed of a couple of mechanics, which is 1, a heavy attack, 2, a light attack, 3, a block button, and 4, a focus ability. I think you actually unlock it during your second boss fight. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think you unlock it in your second boss fight. And I'm not gonna spoil what that does, you're gonna find it out on your own. And yeah, there's also a dedicated melee button. Even though the combat is very simple in my opinion, the enemy types you get, they are very simple and straightforward. I'm pretty sure you're gonna get the hang of it within the first like 2 hours. But as you progress through the story, you're gonna get a slightly more wider range of enemy types that you're gonna have to combat throughout the game. For example, the first enemy you actually face in the game, in the early stages of the game, is actually one enemy type. He's very simple and straightforward. But the twist to that actually comes in, I think, around about 4 hours in or 3 hours in the game. Whereas you would have to actually juggle in between 2 to 3 enemy types. And that number can actually go up to 16, because in endgame you would have to juggle at least 10 enemies in one combat session. And yeah, I'll tell you the truth, it really gets complex as you go along the story, because the enemy types you get, they might help each other, and if you turn your back against them, it's not one of those things where enemies off screen won't attack you, because they will definitely attack when you turn your back against them, and you can die within 1 to 2 or 3 hits depending on the type of enemy you're actually facing. So let's talk about the audio. As I've said early on this video, the audio in this game is freaking amazing, dude. Like the 360 surround sound they provide in this game is really amazing, dude. Like, I really appreciated playing the game on high graphics and on good headsets, because you can hear the voices, you can hear the game world, and you can hear the enemies at times, and you can hear the narrative. When all of that is at full effect, I'm telling you, dude, you can appreciate the amount of work that actually went into the audio alone. And even before you start playing the game, you are advised to actually play the game with headsets, because that's the way to go when it comes to this game alone. Before I end this video off, I just wanted to put in a mention when it comes down to the game. This might be considered a spoiler, but later on when you're gonna do the trials, there's this one specific trial that actually tests your hearing skills. First of all, Senua cannot see in that one trial. Like, everything is just pitch black, and you as the player alone you are also left in the darkness. You can't see anything. By anything, I really do mean it when I say anything, because you can't see anything. In that one trial alone, the only thing you can count on is your hearing. That's all. And yeah, that trial alone was my favorite part of the game, because it really tested my skills when it came down to hearing. So yeah, I was able to get that off my chest. But yeah, long story short, when everything is on full effect, you can really appreciate the amount of work and the amount of detail that was actually put in when it comes down to audio. The one issue that I have with Hellblade is that if you are going to play this game on low-end hardware, you might encounter visual bugs or glitches because of the less powerful hardware. If you are going to run the game on less powerful hardware, if I had to give an example, if you were to look carefully at the hair, if you are playing on low or medium settings. The second example would be sometimes the lighting in the game, for some reason, it becomes distorted or pixelated, in other words, because you can actually see each individual pixel when you play the game on slightly lower settings or on lower end hardware, because I've had that issue. I think it was just early on, but after that I was able to play the game on an optimal state. So if you are planning on playing a game with a great story, good graphics, and amazing audio, I highly recommend you to play Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, because I think Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice is a must-play game when it comes down to graphics and everything in overall, on my opinion. So in my opinion, Hellblade is a must-play. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video, in the next one. Bye bye.